For now, let's cross over to Shriram Subramanian, founder and managing director of InGovern Research Services, and he's joining in on the phone line to also, give us his point of view. Mr. Subramanian, good evening, and thank you so much for taking the time out. First, reactions. The Justice Srikrishna panel finding Ms. Kochhar guilty of violating the bank's, code of conduct. She's been found guilty of lack of disclosures and the failure to recuse herself from the loan approval panel. Your first reaction before we really talk about what are the other questions that this indictment raises?
Good evening. I think this is obviously unprecedented in corporate India to sort of terminate the CEO with cause and then also claw back 10 years of bonuses and ESOPs. And more importantly, one has to discern now the difference between disclosures or adhering to code of conduct and the criminal quid pro quo which the CBI is investigating. So the board or the Justice Srikrishna report only ring fences its responsibilities to the ambit of ICICI and the disclosures that Chanda Kochhar made to the company. So I think from that perspective, the company obviously is not going into the criminal culpability of the issue, whether there was quid pro quo in another entity which was unrelated to Videocon itself and that kind of a thing. And so that is for the CBI to figure out. And so one needs to discern these two things differently. But definitely this is also puts the onus on the board of directors to not be awestruck by star CEOs and not rush to their defense on day one itself.
Yeah, Mr. Subramanian, I want to actually, that's going to be my next question. But before that, I also want to just welcome Prabal, Basu, Roy in on this discussion. Mr. Roy, good evening, and thank you for taking the time out. As Mr. Subramanian was saying, do you also believe that now these are findings that are going to add heft to the CBI's case that just filed its FIR something like, 6 days ago?
See, I've not gone into the case at all because I'm sort of outside, but I did speak on it, about half an hour ago. So whatever my understanding is, I'll tell you as of now. So it will definitely add heft to the CBI case because this essentially talks about the culpability of, from a person like Justice Srikrishna. So there is no question. But like I also said earlier, the government has given confusing signals by that blog of Mr. Jaitley. So I hope it is taken to its logical conclusion.
Mr. Subramanian, let's go back to the point you were making. And the question then to be asked is that, was Chanda Kochhar acting alone? Of course, we know that the CBI has said that it could very well look at, the role that was played by other members of the committee. But, to your point about just how responsible and accountable is the board of directors in this matter?
I think one needs to again differentiate between the CBI's statement or pulling in other members of the management into the case itself. That obviously I hope is based on much more evidence and they dig deeper. But in this case, definitely the board in 2016 chose to ignore or quickly ignored the whistleblower letter. And even in 2018, they quickly put out a defense for Chanda Kochhar. So without even inquiring and going into the merits of the case. So from that perspective, definitely the board was awestruck by a star CEO, and I think they owe a responsibility to investors, and they have been derelict of their duty from that perspective.
Prabal, Basu, would you agree the board somewhere here being awestruck by the CEO and therefore not quite acting responsibly?
I don't know if they were awestruck or they were sort of sleeping at the wheel. That's a matter of opinion. But the fact that they have let down investors and all is obvious. I mean, that's something which has been our prime case for the last 8 months that, we've been writing about and talking about this issue.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Subramanian, the other thing is that, these findings have prompted the bank to treat Ms. Kochhar's resignation as a termination. Not just that, she's going to also have to sort of give back all the entitlements and bonuses that were handed out to her from March 2009 up until March of 2018. What have you made of, this penalty, if we can call it that? Is it reasonable?
Yeah, I would think so. I am assuming that much of the Justice Srikrishna report is based on evidence that there was a company that her husband owned. There was a company that there was a relationship between her husband's company and Videocon, to which a large loan was given, and that she did not recuse from the committee. So all these evidence must have been available for them to take this action. And I think for once, I think some board has actually taken a dramatic action which will hopefully prove a deterrent to other management and for such violations. And see, this is also from a perspective of a managing director or a CEO of a bank being penny wise and pound foolish, because she loses so much at stake now. I mean, her reputation is gone. No other board will touch her to induct her as an independent director or so, and all these clawbacks and retirals is completely gone. So I think, yes, I mean, for something where there is evidence and there is a clear trace, I think this is a worthy, I would say, penalty.
Prabal, Basu, the other thing that, investors of ICICI are wondering is about likelihood now of a class action suit by foreign investors and, holding the earlier management responsible and accountable.
See, I'm not very sure about the class action suit part, but the fact of the matter is that it is a NASDAQ-listed entity, US-listed entity, so there the laws do permit such things. But investors as a whole, I mean, will not be in any way sort of, let's say, okay, let me just step back a moment. See, we talk a lot about the new management, right? New management, everything is squeaky clean. Now, that is not necessarily the case, because these sort of things reflect the culture of the organization. It is not only one person's doing. Let's be clear about that.
Sure.
So there was a committee of directors. There was a committee of the credit committee. The very same people, the executive directors, most of them are still there in the company. So, they have just chosen to look the other way. Whether they were directly culpable or not, it's not for me to comment. But the fact of the matter is, if people knew outside the organization all that was happening, then, they just chose to look the other way and let things happen. So so a class action suit from that perspective of a management team, as you asked, is very much on the cards. Whether legally it will be done or not, I do not know. But the need for a cleansing up of the entire culture is extremely important in my mind.
Okay.
And that can't happen with an insider being there.
Right. Mr. Subramanian, let me ask you the last question. And, as Mr. Prabal Basu said, that a lot of folks look the other way. The same charges can be leveled on even the regulators, whether it was, the RBI or, the finance ministry. How would you say they've acted in all of this, especially when there was a whistleblower complaint that dates back to over 2.5 years ago?
Capacity or capability. I think in investigating such financial transactions, even to the extent that there are media reports saying that the CBI almost closed the preliminary inquiry as of last week before they filed the final charge sheet. So that itself shows that the premier investigating agency is wavering. And so I think from a capability perspective or this one, they also need to bulk up their I would say, their focus.
All right, Mr. Subramanian and Mr. Basu, thank you, gentlemen,
thank you
so much.